The gentleman from Texas seek recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a motion to instruct at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Gallego of Texas moves to recommit the managers on the part of the House at the conference on the disagreeing votes of the two houses on the House amendment to the Senate amendment to the bill H.R. 3230, an act to improve the access to veterans to medical services from the Department of Veterans Affairs and for other purposes, be instructed to recede from disagreement with Section 601 of the Senate amendment relating to authorization of major medical facility leases.
Pursuant to Clause 7B of Rule 22, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gallego, and the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Miller, each will control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've all heard so much about the challenges that the VA faces and how it has totally, thoroughly, and completely failed many of our veterans. This motion to instruct the conferees would be a motion to ask that we essentially recede to the Senate provisions on leases for VA facilities. What this does, or what it would do, would be to provide and expand 26 VA facilities from across the country and improve access to care for our nation's veterans, including the 1.7 million veterans from across Texas. In the district that I represent, as an example, District 23, which comprises about 24% of the land area of Texas, it is 800 miles or so from one corner of the district to the other. And in that district are a very large number of veterans. The challenge is, first off, to be able to get the veterans who have served, who are from the rural areas, to get them access to the nearest VA facility. From my hometown of Alpine, for example, to El Paso, where there is a VA clinic, is some 220 miles. If you live further south in Brewster County, that distance is longer. If you live here in Eagle Pass in Maverick County, for example, you've got to go all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley before you find the nearest veterans facility, actually all the way down to Corpus. The Senate provisions would allow for an additional 26 facilities, including a new facility in Lubbock and improvements and consolidation to facilities in San Antonio that are critical to veterans and their families. New facilities will help address the wait times for medical care where it's needed for veterans in our communities. Frankly, these facilities will help open up appointment slots. According to an internal VA audit that has been released, there are more than 57,000 patients who have waited at least 90 days for their first appointment, and unfortunately, some VA facilities in Texas have among the highest average of wait times in the nation. And that's totally inexcusable. It fails the people who stood up and served their country and did so much to maintain and protect our freedom. While we need to explore all our options, including more contracted care, to address the backlog, we also have to make sure that the VA has the capacity to fill the needs for our vets, and especially those who have unique health care needs. I maintain that regardless of where you live in Texas or any other state, you have as much right to health care as any veteran from any other part of the state. And by creating an additional 26 facilities, you would actually be creating more slots and giving more access to more people. For rural vets who face additional barriers, for example, if you're driving from Alpine to El Paso, and that's 220 miles, and you need a driver, and that driver has to take time off from work, you need probably to spend the night in El Paso. That's a hotel room. You've got to eat while you're there, so that's meals. All of those additional expenses. The other thing, frankly, is that many of the rural vets tend to be older, sicker, and poorer than the general population. These additional facilities may very well be lifesavers for that population. These new facilities will help address the wait times for care where it is needed, and they are crucial. And frankly, I know there's been conversation on the House side with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle about creating more facilities than 26. I know that my friends from Oklahoma, for example, would like to see an additional clinic in Tulsa that would serve Oklahoma. Oklahoma veterans, as Texas veterans, as veterans across the board in every state, deserve more access to health care and better access to health care. This week, in fact, the acting secretary of the VA, Secretary Gibson, told members of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee that we need to increase the internal capacity at the VA. And while we need to do a lot more than just that, these additional facilities would help achieve that goal.